Friday, I see some familiar faces, which is nice. Again, we have our regulars, and then there's, sometimes surprise people that come in. So I'm really happy about today. You'll have to forgive me. I've had a bit of a cold or something the last couple weeks, which is not fun. And but it's okay. I'm on my way to feeling better. So anyone watching later or joining us for the first time, I'm Helen Patterson. I'm the founder of Life Works Well. And I started this With Heart book circle back in the fall because I love to read, and I am always reading books, especially related to culture, management, leadership, personal development, growth, anything that relates. And so I thought, why not bring people that also love that together? And then in January, I decided that for 2025, I was going to just have female women authors for this year. So I'm like, just feel like I'm championing women and everything that we're doing in the world to make it a better place. And so today I'm very excited to introduce Corina Walsh, who I met in an incubator. I think it was called that at the time, but an accelerator business group with Eleanor Beaton. She seems to connect a lot of people. And so a lot of people that I've met or had on have been through Eleanor or other people in the group. So so happy to have you here. And the book that we're doing today is Modern Manager. And it is conquering the 5 frustrations of leadership. And yeah, there's a lot of frustration. So I loved how you put that together. I've been a manager before, so I can relate even to the new manager stuff we'll talk about. And then, so Corina, so this is not her first book. She's also published other books, and she's a speaker, author, podcaster, and also a certified leadership coach. And I love that your programs leverage everything you've learned in the past, and that there really is so much transformation that can happen when managers, well, become self-aware, but also learn the skills that are required to be an effective manager that people love to work with, and that will build amazing teams and cultures. And so your flagship program is called Managing Made Easy, which, believe me, I could have used years and years ago when I became a new manager who was a technical person who got put in a role and had no clue what she was doing. So there you go. So anyway, we'll hear a lot more about you. I know you're in Atlantic Canada, in our beautiful province of Newfoundland, which I have had a chance to visit. And I also wanted to mention that you're a top 50 leader under 40 in Atlantic Canada. So congratulations for that, and receiving a YWCA Woman of Distinction Award in Business. So I just feel extremely blessed to have you here to get to know more about this book writing journey and what we covered. So if you want to just talk a little bit about this book, what brought you to writing and looking at the 5 frustrations of leadership. I know just before people hopped on, you were talking about, how long it takes. And there are people here who have written books or are about to write and publish books. So we always love to hear that, a little bit about the process, but why the conquering the 5 frustrations, and how you develop that concept. And then I have a couple other questions, and then we always open it up. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much for having me. And what an amazing introduction. If you could just come with me everywhere and just introduce me to everyone, I'd be extremely grateful for that, because I can't stand talking about all the accolades and the stuff I've done. I think so many women are like that because we've been taught to kind of tone it down a little. But Helen, if you could just introduce me everywhere, I would love that. That'd be so great. Yes, so Helen's already told you professionally everything that I am: certified ICF certified coach, and I have group programming, and I do one-on-one leadership coaching. And after I wrote my first book, the self-publishing process really beat me up. So I said, I'm never doing this again. But I think all of you in a book club like this probably know that when a sense of purpose, when a mission digs its claws into you, there's no fighting it, right? And it was like, I think it was late 2022. I just had a feeling. I just like, every single manager who comes through my program, I've been doing this work for 10 years, okay? Every single manager who comes through my programs, exact same problems. There's no new problems. Maybe the same problem in a different coat, in a different sweater. It's always the same problems. And I can only have so many people, I can only serve so many people in my group programs and in one on one settings. So I thought a book was just an amazing way to reach more people very quickly. And I have a lot of empathy, as do I'm guessing if you're in a book club like this, you do too. And I can't stand to see people suffer, especially when the tools are out there. And after so many stories of managers, young managers, new managers, first time managers, even experienced managers who've never had management training say to me, like, this is not worth it. I'm not cut out for this. I'm going back to being an individual contributor. I'm like, but wait, what if you were never set up for success in the first place? Let's evaluate that. Do you have the skills? Do you have the tools? Because it's not your fault if you don't, if no one's ever given them to you. And that was the mission and the purpose that came on so strong that I had to write a second book. I came up with it. Just came to me one day. I'm a student of Patrick Lencioni, Five Dysfunctions of a Team. It just came to me, Five Frustrations of a Leader. And modern manager, because management, our workplaces have changed so much. They had changed so much pre-pandemic, and then the pandemic hit and everything went oopsie daisy, topsy turvy. And our workplaces are not going to be the same, even though a lot of corporations are desperately trying to go back to old ways. But the new generation of employees coming into the workplace now have expectations like we've never seen before. And you can't lead in the same way. The problems that show up, the people problems are the same, but you can't respond to them in the same way like you used to before. And that was the impetus. That's why I had to write the book. And in terms of process, I say this to every entrepreneur out there. If you are consistently posting to social media, like I haven't been so great lately, but during the pandemic especially, I have been posting to LinkedIn every single day, doing a newsletter consistently every 2 weeks. That is a ton of content. If you are not once a year taking that content and turning it into a book or some type of thought leadership or a series of podcasts or a series of videos or whatever you want to do, and now there's wicked crazy AI tools that can help you with that. I mean, you're not leveraging your content as well as you could be. I literally asked my assistant to go through all my Google Docs. Every quarter, I start a new Google Doc of my LinkedIn content and, Instagram or wherever I'm putting my content. A new Google Doc for every quarter. All my content for that quarter goes in that one Google Doc. I asked my assistant to go through every single Google Doc of all my content for the past 3 years, 5 years, whatever. I had the 5 categories written down, and I said, just group everything in the right category. And then, you've got 40,000 words, and you just need 40,000 words for your first draft. That's a solid first draft. You need about 60,000 words for a good, like a book that feels substantial. Not that matters, because I've had some books that were paper thin that were just so valuable. But that's the strategy. I don't have a magic book writing strategy. I block off one morning a week. It's usually a Sunday morning. It's usually the only time I can sit down to write. If I'm going to do a big writing project like a book, but I don't start from scratch. I take a pile of content and make it more robust and turn it into something that hopefully people will pay for.
I love that. Thank you so much. That I always love to sort of ask about the individual author's process, because everyone seems to be a little different, and I think it has to, be what works for you. So yeah, thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask one more question, and then everyone will introduce themselves in the chat, or when they come out to ask a question, they'll do that as well. But I thought one of the frustrations I really enjoyed was number 5, which was the motivation mismatch. And I love how you named all of these, because honestly, I could relate to all of them. as a manager. And I thought, wow, when I look back, Karina, I'm thinking, yeah, when I first became a manager the first time, I didn't have any training. I didn't have any training. I did get
Me
a
neither.
coach later, because it was just chaos. And maybe I was one of these that needed one because I needed development or something. But back
We all
back
do.
then, coaching wasn't even as robust as it is now. But the motivation mismatch for me was very important because when I'm working with organizations as well, I can see where everyone's unique, everyone is individual, and they may not have the same drivers intrinsically and extrinsically. So I thought that was really good. Can you kind of give us a little bit more insights on that? And what would you recommend? I think you did in the book, but that process of how to kind of sit down one on one, and just your thoughts to expand a little bit more on that concept.
For sure. Yeah, motivation and employee engagement are lumped together because they're so closely tied. The key drivers of engagement and the key drivers of motivation are very linked. And motivation is typically, and engagement, typically done very poorly in companies. They rely on the low hanging fruit, perks, parties, and prizes. Nothing wrong with perks, parties, and prizes. Please don't get rid of that. But it's not enough. It's short bursts. And I think motivation is extremely misunderstood. It's an intrinsic motivation you're after. Yes, if you're trying to get a bunch of employees over the finish line for a project, there's nothing like throwing in an extrinsic perk to perk people up and get the energy going, but that the flame will burn out. So I advise every manager you've got to get to know your employees as individuals. What's important to them? And what you got to remember is that what's important to them is going to change based on what stage of life they're at. If you asked me in my 20s what was important to me, money, cold hard cash, because I was fresh out of school, broke, wanted money for the wedding to pay for our wedding, and money for the down payment on the house. It was money, money, money. Getting into my 30s, I have a child. It's not money anymore. It's a sense of purpose because this is not my world anymore. It's my son's world I'm leaving behind. I need a purpose. That's why not. So you're going to see a lot of women leave in their late 30s, early 40s because they don't have a sense of purpose in their job and they got to go out and start that purpose driven business. So if you want to keep your employees, especially your female employees, sit down with them. What stage of life are they at? What's important to them right now? I was doing a lot of work for a local tech company doing managing Made Easy cohorts for them, and we got to the motivation module, and I was talking about like you've got to know what's important to your employees. Where are they going with their future? Can you connect where they want to go in their future with the work they're doing now? Because that will be unlimited intrinsic motivation. And they actually told me a story about how they had a young employee who really didn't seem very motivated, and someone kind of sat her down and said, what do you want for your life? And she's like, actually, I want to go do this program over in the UK that has nothing to do with my job. She's like, I want a completely different career. And they supported her for an entire year to help her get into that program and help her find the funds and everything to go pay for that program. And I mean, she was over the top for that year. She was so motivated, even though it wasn't really the job she wanted to do, because she saw how they were supporting her future and her path forward. They still have an amazing relationship with her. It's what if our workplaces are not just about hitting KPIs, as much maxing out productivity at the cost of our health and well-being, but they are incubators for becoming the people, the humans that we can be. And maybe that means some of us will leave, and that's okay. Don't you want to be the person who says, I helped that person get there. They don't work for me anymore, but I helped them get there and look how happy they are.
Yeah.
That's my
Oh,
philosophy.
I love that because I relate to that so much. I relate to that personally and as a leader because I've I remember a couple of my first jobs where, yeah, the VP I worked for or whatever was just like I was wanted to keep me there, but I wanted more, and I thought, okay, well, I didn't get that help, so I left and I did other things, right?
Yeah.
So I really believe that it is about, and I mean, wonderful managers are those that get this and understand what drives someone, helps them And I love the other piece in the book when you were talking about the different relationships. Um, as far as it could be coaching, it could be, I have it here because I earmarked this because there's something similar in the book I'm writing, different
Yeah.
relationships that we have, right? So coaching, counseling, therapy, which we're not all trained for, but sometimes an HR professional, we definitely feel like a therapist, but mentoring and then training and advising. So I'll ask you to kind of just touch on the differences for those, if you don't mind. And then I want to make sure I open it up to questions from everyone
Yeah.
else here, because I think that's really a beautiful thing about putting on those different hats and those leaders that can step into that. And they may have to be trained, but yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
thanks.
So I am an ICF certified coach. I take my job, my role as a coach extremely seriously. And in my coaching program that I did to become certified, they taught us the difference between they taught us really firm boundaries. Here's what coaching is. You're not a counselor because this is what a counselor is. You're not a trainer. If you're doing this, you're being a trainer. If you're doing this, you're being a mentor. Because they really drilled it into us what coaching is, because the coaching is very confusing. A lot of people think they're coaching. A lot of managers think they're coaching, but they're telling, right? They're advising. Nothing wrong with that, but don't think that you're coaching in that moment. So I'm a stickler. As someone with a background in training, adult education, I'm a stickler for definitions and making sure everybody understands what their role is. And so much of the frustration that managers have is that they don't understand their role, right? They don't understand their role. And someone in the company will say, "Oh, you're having trouble with that employee. You got an underperformer. Just go coach them. Just coach them." Well, they haven't been trained on how to coach. There's a process to coaching. There's a trust that has to be established. So coaching, I mean, I'm guessing there's a few coaches in this group. Coaching is asking open-ended questions. You are holding space for the other person to come up with their own solutions. That's hard for some managers and employees to wrap their head around until they experience it. But that's true coaching. If you're telling someone what to do, you're advising them. You're more like a consultant. That's fine if that's what the situation calls for. Just don't call it coaching. If you're training, you're teaching someone how to do something. It's very much how to. I train managers on how to manage. And that's fine too. There's times you're gonna have to train your employees. If you're a mentor, you're sharing your past experiences with someone so they can learn from your past experiences. That's wonderful. There's a time and place for that too. So, and counseling is about healing. It's about healing your past. I really felt it was important for managers to understand the lines of those different modalities and which ones fall under the purview of ethical management. Managers should coach. Managers should train. Managers can be a mentor, maybe even an advisor. Should you be a counselor? Oh, hell no. That's not your job. Unless you are in that role where you are a certified counselor. And what's happening today, which I also wrote about in my book, is that employees are dumping a lot of personal stuff on their managers. And managers are already overwhelmed, and now I have to be your counselor because it's safe now to talk about mental health. And I'm glad it's safe to talk about mental health. But oh, your manager's not your counselor. So I've had to train managers on boundaries to say things like, "Oh, I don't need the details of your weekend and the family fight and the trauma that's happening now. But here's how I'm going to support you. How can I support you at work?" Like, so I've had to train managers on how to have an empathic response when someone comes to them with their trauma or with their whatever happened, an empathic response, and then a redirect to the correct resource so that you're handling the situation in a sensitive manner. You are not required as a manager to be a counselor or therapist. It's too much for you, and you're going to put yourself at risk for burnout. And feel free to argue with me. I love a debate if you feel differently. It's how I feel because I've coached managers who almost have vicarious trauma because of some of the stuff that employees have told them. And you're not required, it's not in your job description. You're not required to do that. That's how I feel.
Wow, that is going to be a clip that I'm definitely going to be sharing out there, I think, because
I'm going to get letters.
I don't know, no, but the world is expecting a lot of everyone. And I think, I mean, empathy is one of these top skills that apparently are now required at the top end for managers and leaders to be successful, and everything's changing. But you're right, we're not trained to, unless you have training in healing modalities and therapy, and one of us here does. And she looks like she has her hand up. So I'm going to hand it over to Catherine because I'm sure she wants to ask a question or weigh in on this. So welcome, Catherine. Just do a quick intro too so Corina knows who you are as well. This is a
Yes,
doozy
hello, and
topic.
such a joy to hear your words because we are definitely speaking the same language.
Thank you.
I have an actual background in also adult ed, and I'm a trainer and therapy, cognitive behavioral, solution focused, family systems. But more recently, I've spent I worked in the corporate world for a while, as looks like a lot of us did here, and figured out all the bullying in the workplace and things. It wasn't a psychologically safe workplace, and so when that mandate came out in 2012, that's what I started to do, was to work in mental health leadership
Nice.
training. So I love your. I was thinking right away, five dysfunctions of a team, like five frustration, like way to go. And these are all things that I would talk about and train to in mental health leadership workshop. And I really think you're right about that role delineation, and about and I don't know the verbiage, but I find I let people breathe. So guess what? You don't have to be a therapist. Even if you think your boss has multiple personality disorder, you've got it all figured out, right? Um,
Diagnose your boss.
you can breathe into that, but be a bridge builder.
Yeah.
And, I also reference, and I don't know if you pulled this into your research too, and I think Barbara Coloroso does this really well in schools, the bully, the bullied, and the bystander. And so when you overhear that gossip vortex, which takes the morale, I'm sure you'd agree, down faster than anything, what do you do and say as a manager? So I guess what I'm interested in too is, I mean, of course, the burnout and overwhelm, like anything we can do to prevent that disability leave, keeping that employee's foot in the workplace door. I loved that you said, we're human. Well, you didn't say we're human beings, but you're on that. We're human beings first and then human doings.
Yeah.
And that it's just as important to just listen and not advise. Like it's so hard for them, right? It's like, well,
So
here's what
hard.
you need to do, because that's what their performance management model
Yep.
trains them to do.
Yep.
But to breathe and to say, I'm not sure what to say or do to be helpful in this moment. Like, I'm just curious, because it sounds like you've done a lot of that communication training. Like, when I tell them, could you say that? Like, they're all like,
Yeah.
almost like they've been outed, right?
I get the same reaction as you're getting, Catherine, and I'm so glad to hear you're doing this important work. I get the same reaction. There's an element of relief when managers realize someone gave them permission not to be a counselor. And then there's the training, how to communicate
Yes.
empathically, but with a boundary. And I teach them how to incorporate the coach approach to that, similar to what the response that you just said. Like, I'm not sure how to, what to say in that moment. I've had to help managers understand that it's safe to say that. I've trained them on how to say things like, how to kind of let the other person know that you hear them. Wow, that must have been a difficult situation for you. Wow, that must have been challenging for you. And how, and this is the key part. How can I support you in your work?
Your role.
Not
Yeah.
how can I support you?
hmm
How can I support you in your work?
hmm
Because there's employees who have taken the how can I support you to try and turn their manager into their best friend, turn them into their parent, their counselor, their whatever. So the language can be very subtle. And it's a relief to a lot of managers just to get that sentence. And they're like, I don't understand why I couldn't come up with that myself. I'm like, because the house is on fire and you're stuck inside.
Yes.
That's why you can't come up with. your brain isn't allowing you to come up with that because you're trying to bail out the sinking ship while you're in it. And that's what coaching is for, because we hold the space, right? That's what training is for. We hold the space for that. And I just coached a young woman who's only 29 in her first management role, trying to manage someone with severe health issues, physical and mental. And she's just drowning, and giving her these responses of to hold the space, but hold the boundary for herself, to protect herself. And one thing, kind of as a side note, because you mentioned something about how do we prevent the burnout and all that stuff. Like, I mean, I gotta applaud the younger generation. They're just not having it. They're just not having it. And the Gen X and maybe the millennials and stuff are kind of a little bit resentful. Like, why didn't we come up with that? But we didn't. But we're learning now, and that's okay. So let's not give the younger generation a hard time because they're not going to sacrifice themselves on the altar of corporate life. Let's applaud them that they learned from what we did.
And on that, you really talk about boundaries, and you talk about that in the book. And I think that is what the younger generation, like, they're not having it. Like, this is my role, and this isn't my role, and I only have this much time, energy, and resources, and I'll let you know. I got to go now, right? I got to go to my therapy appointment.
Go to my Reiki session.
Exactly.
Or my
But yeah,
silent
early
retreat.
intervention. Thank you so much for being a proponent of that too, because I think what managers don't realize is a lot of them have that wait and see. And oh, I don't want to get under, Mike's grill. Like, he's just having a rough little patch. Yeah, well, who's that affecting? Of
That's
course, the
right.
team, the organization, but also he didn't get early intervention. He didn't
That's
get
right.
care, and you lost him to a disability leave. So
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up. How many managers have I coached? We're like, oh, I got one employee off on sick leave. I got another one ready to go who I know is coming in with her sick note soon. Like, it's wild. And I don't blame the manager for that.
no.
I'll never blame a manager for that, especially if they don't have the tools to even handle that.
Well, thank you for giving the tools.
Oh,
They need
I'm
Yes,
it.
trying.
amazing. I see Lovell has a question. So, Lovell, I want to do a quick intro and then ask away.
Thank you, Helen. I've always enjoyed coming to your book circles off and on whenever I can. So thank you for putting all of this up for everyone else. So Helen and I know each other, I don't know, 10 years or more, maybe, something like that. We've been together as HR colleagues and whatever. So little one-liner about me. I've been in corporate HR for about 15 years, and just about a few months back, plunged into exiting the corporate world and getting on my own. So, for lack of better words, starting to get into HR consulting, just still setting things up right now. Thank you, Helen. and so, thank you. Very nervous about all of this, but it's a really great experience learning how the whole journey is, going through the whole journey. So, Corina, obviously, been 15 years in HR. I've seen it all as well, and not as much as Helen, of course, and maybe not as much as you because you've been practicing for 10 years. A lot of the things that you are saying, you and Catherine as well have said, they're resonating so much. Unfortunately, I have not read your book, Karina. I'm so sorry for that, but I'm definitely, this is something. And coincidentally, I haven't shared this with Helen either. I am on right now a mission to um, create a report, for lack of better words. I don't know what it will come out to be at the end. I don't think I'm bold enough to write a book just yet, but maybe a report or something. Exactly what your book is about. Uh, the struggles of managers and leaders, and especially first-time managers, especially early career managers. And I've started to interview a couple of people already. I've interviewed and starting to get more into interviewing some people and finding out what challenges they're having, because I have seen it so much. And I understand what you said, Corina and Catherine as well. Managers take up a lot on themselves. However, I've had a little different experience as well, where I've had managers approach me and they say, this person on my team is having this issue. That's not my problem. I'm sending them to you.
Yeah.
And they do not understand, especially if they are early leaders, early first time managers and whatever, they do not understand that it is part of their role.
Yeah.
And it is so hard to explain to them. As soon as you say, oh, you're having this issue, go to HR. It feels, to the employee, it feels, oh my God, I'm doing something so bad. It is being escalated to HR. It always feels like that to them. So it has been so hard to explain to the managers, oh, this is not my role. I wasn't trained. Yes, I understand you were not trained. I'm here to help you, guide you. I cannot say coach because I'm not a certified coach, but still, I can give you tips on how and which way to lead the conversation. And if they
Yeah.
need even more support, then I can guide them to what kind of counseling or whatever you need. But don't say this is not part of my role. There is such a misconception on with managers to say, I'm not, this is not my job. This is HR's job. This is not my job. I'm going to recommend them go to EAP and get some counseling. They
Yeah.
fail to understand. So I wanted to ask you, as well as Catherine, both in your work, do you find this, or is it just me having?
All the time. Yeah. All the time. I always say, and sorry, Catherine, I don't mean to jump in over you first. But I always say I don't really help managers. I help HR, because I train managers, but that helps HR. So I
Thank you.
typically get into a company through HR, because I'm like, actually, I'm helping you. Because how many times do your employees come to you to get you to have the difficult conversation? What is it doing to you when managers aren't doing this? I'm a champion for HR. I didn't even work in HR.
Right.
That wasn't my role, but learning and development typically falls under HR.
Right.
And so there's a two-part answer that could be a bit long, so I'm going to try and land the plane a little quicker. But HR needs to be confident in flipping that back to the manager and saying, actually, it is your role, because you're expected to be a modern-day people manager in addition to a technical manager. But then if they don't have the skills, if they haven't been through a people leadership program, then that needs to kind of be the next avenue too, right? And you don't have to be a certified coach to take the coach approach. You know how to do that. You're skilled at this, right? You can ask the open-ended questions. So to build that empathy, sometimes what I've had to do with managers is say, okay, let's say you go to your manager and your newborn baby has been awake every night, and you're only getting 2 hours sleep, and you need this and this. What kind of response would you expect from your manager? Would you expect that to just initially be escalated to HR? Or would you expect a little bit of space from your manager? And you got to flip it back to something that they can understand and wrap their head around. Oh yeah, actually that was hell that time when my child wasn't sleeping and I was really, it wasn't good. See? So and don't do it in a shaming way, the way I'm kind of doing it right now. But so HR's got to have that firm boundary too, and not be afraid to flip it back. But then there's the coach approach that you could take with that as well.
Right. On that note, I also think that senior leadership in organizations need to not only understand what the role of a manager is, but also understand the role of HR.
Yes.
Because they have this misconception as well. And the minute the manager goes to their VP or director or whoever they report to and say, I went to HR and I said, this team member has this issue, HR pushed it back on me. They're not doing their job. So, it's a total, there's so much education required.
Yeah, I agree.
And so thank you for writing this book. I hope it goes into every manager and every leadership person and whatever, so that they can read, but also implement and let it be an awareness to them, I just hope. And like you started thinking about this a couple of years back, and then kudos to you, you wrote the book. But this has been, all through my HR corporate career, it has been burning inside me. So now when I have the time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do at least interview a few people and write about it, whether it's a LinkedIn post, whether it's a report or something, because the awareness is just not there, and it is just
Agree.
leading to. So thank you. Just
You're
comments, no
welcome.
questions. And thank you for your work as well, Catherine. Amazing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, actually, honestly, those two words, role delineation. Like, as HR professionals, I actually, for the first time ever, I find like companies are expecting so much more with less, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy, the expectations now. And it's crazy. Like, I've never had like a like work up to a PowerPoint or workshop with 5 HR people, and 3 of them stayed in the room. And we used to ask them not to stay in the room because often the leaders wouldn't have those difficult role play conversations because they felt like HR was in the room. So it was kind of cool because they've had HR's getting the training, the leaders are getting the training, everybody's getting clear on what my role is. And now what we need, I find, is more, and I've done some C-suite, but from the top down, right? If they're not walking the talk and they're not getting the training and they're getting charged with harassment or whatever, and they're like, well, I didn't know. Well, you can't know what you know till you know. But yeah, these 5, frustrations, 5 dysfunctions, everybody needs to be embracing that. And isn't it funny how sometimes too someone is on a performance management plan and no one ever asked, oh, do they have any other challenges? Well, they have seasonal affective disorder. You could add a happy lamp and 20-minute break over here. And, they could have been your top performer, right? But instead you knew the performance management model, so that's what you stuck to. And no one had trained you or helped you to see that there was more than one way to support a person and build a bridge to resources. Be a bridge builder. Don't solve it.
Right.
Yeah, I
And I
love it.
think performance management and performance improvement plans, they take it as a crutch and an easy way out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Easy way out.
Mhm.
Okay, put them on this plan, and then we're going to go da da da, and it doesn't work. Okay, you're out. Like, and then the next person comes
Disposable.
in. Then what?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Agree.
So these are all amazing, amazing points because um, bringing it back as a human relations professional is what I call it. I've been trying to change the dialogue from human resources to human relations. And the thing is, what you touched on earlier, everyone, is if we're not managing our own energy to be supportive and have very sound boundaries, it doesn't really assist those in the organization. So I see so much of what everybody's talking about, and it's incredible that, I mean, I've been around for a long time myself, in corporate, out of corporate, back in corporate, and back out again, which is very nice. But I'm still in there in a different way with supporting the clients that I've had. And it does amaze me that some things are still the same, like from years ago. I think there's exacerbation of issues. Definitely things have changed, and we have to continue to understand, we have 5 generations, I think, now in the workplace. But I wanted to come back to one of these 5 frustrations. I'm going to hold the book up. I have to take a picture later. I always do that for whoever has one. I'll get Emily to do that later. But I think you're hopping off at 11, right? So,
It's okay. I can stay.
communication. So I have a colleague who I've known for years. I worked with her in the marketing department at ADP Canada. I learned so much from her about thought leadership because I don't have marketing training, but because I was in a weird department, I was in product management and marketing. Long story, but it was so fun. And she just finished her doctorate. And interesting enough, it was about the fact that the majority of MBA programs and management programs did not have a lot of communication skills training or education or curricula. So I can't wait to read her dissertation. I don't know if I'll read the whole thing, but she said the summary will be good. But she's been studying this for 4 or 5 years. Elizabeth Williams is her name. Some of you may have met her before on mentor circles or something. And so I think that is so fascinating because it's for the kids too. The kids even getting worse for my kids, like, social
Oh, yeah.
media and everything. Like how to engage in discussion and just, so that was one of the frustrations, right? I think that's the first one, if I recall. Sorry. No, maybe not. But it came out in one of them. I mean, I love the delegation one too, by the way, because I love to delegate, as everybody on my team is known. But yeah,
I suspect you're talking about the feedback frustration, maybe, or the.
yes, yeah, and so much of it though is the managers don't feel comfortable engaging
Yeah.
in discussions and communication. So I'm wondering how you bring that into not only the book pieces, but also your leadership cohorts and the training that you do with these managers and coaching. Because I think this is to me, the biggest thing I've seen in organization is real challenges and frustrations with the levels of communication,
Oh my
individually,
gosh.
teams, management, up, down, the whole thing.
Communication in workplaces is typically not great. And I've had people after completing Managing Made Easy, I've had them say, "You're just teaching us how to communicate." And I'm like, yes, that's the hidden curriculum. It's all just communication training because that's it. That's what productivity and relationship building and everything and leadership hinges on. If you can't communicate, you're going to struggle. And so there's 2 modules. It's 1 chapter in the book because like 6 frustrations doesn't sound as good as 5 frustrations. But in the program, it's 6 modules. Feedback module is its own module, and difficult conversations is its own module. And what a lot of people don't realize is that they don't know that there's training out there on how to have a difficult conversation. And then they get into the module and they're so excited. And they're like, "Oh my God, I need this to talk to my teenage daughter. Do you mean to tell me that there was training on this all this time and I didn't know?" And so, I mean, I preach it from the rooftops. I've been doing it for 10 years, and I don't know. Some people hear it, some people don't. It's hard to fight the algorithm these days, but it's baked into my programs. I give them the scripts. I help them understand why this is so important. And you know what? I've received a ton of pushback, usually from men, who say that my approach is soft. And I'm like, well, when you're used to being able to communicate very directly and get away with it without worrying about somebody else's feelings, because that's what men have permission to do, yeah, my approach can come across as soft. But guess what? It just feels uncomfortable to you because it's different. That's all. I'm asking you to do something you haven't really had to consider before, because men can get away with direct communication and women can't. So women are used to it. Women are used to softening things. We have to. And we're used to inviting people into the conversation. I've had tons of pushback on my approach for difficult conversations. You're watering this down. You're sugarcoating it. Actually, I'm trying to talk to someone like they're a human being, and I'm trying to help them keep their dignity intact, and not act like I have some sort of moral superiority by being a manager, because it's not a moral judgment. It's just a job. So it's baked into everything I do. It's not optional. Most managers say they're waiting for module 5. They're waiting for the difficult conversations module. So they can't wait for it. They can't wait for the tool. Even the people who do push back on it because it's uncomfortable for them, most managers cannot wait for that training because it's the hardest part of their job. And I've had managers say, if I had to have module 5 last month, it would have saved me a week and a half. And they didn't even know
Wow.
the training was
Yeah.
available.
I find that really interesting. And so, I mean, it goes back to, if you have an ability to influence decision makers and leaders, the highest level of leadership, about what is going to actually help you with your engagement, attraction, and, having a beautiful culture that then will ripple out to you, serving your clients and customers. And it's just like, I mean, when I will admit, I think things should be easy. It sounds so easy. It's like, easy. Come on. It's just, it's just a simple thing, but for some reason it's extremely complicated. I mean, I've been doing some work in difficult conversations, and having a legal background, I've seen the worst of what can happen when things just get put under the carpet,
Oh, yeah.
ignored, avoided. I mean, I taught as part of alternate dispute resolution to HR professionals at Centennial College. One of the courses I taught, we did this whole assessment on your conflict resolution styles, conflict management, and just really, again, there's so many aspects of being an amazing manager and leader that if you're not taught, you don't know, right?
No.
And so you don't understand, okay, you're an avoider, or you're a competitor, or you're compromising, or ideally you're collaborative, right? But there's just so many things that we haven't. And I've gone in and done training. And so they think, oh, you can come in and do a half day workshop and all your problems are going to go away, right? Not if something's been there for ages and hasn't been dealt with. So all of it's so important. And so creating these different avenues for learning and development is amazing. And that's why we continue, to need people to get out there. So definitely I will be recommending this book to some managers I work with and leaders. I often take something to the leadership team and say, this is what you should read first before we pass it on. And sometimes you have to build the trust, right? For them to say, okay, Helen, I get what you're saying. I have the time to listen, right?
Yeah.
So anyone else have any other questions? And Nikesh, welcome back. We always have, we're always mindful about mentioning, because you have been one of the only men that have come to our sessions, and we appreciate, because we know what kind of human you are. So thanks for being here. We kind of broaden that, it has been a man's world for a long time, but don't take it personally. We still value you and your input here. I see Emmeline has a question, so that's wonderful.
Yes. I'm just curious, because we've been speaking about this new generation quite a lot as well today. And what I'm picking up from my own personal experience, my friends' experiences, is that this new generation just doesn't want to have a manager position anymore. It seems like they're just not interested in becoming a manager. And so that is a big thing, a big situation to be dealt with and reconciled with, because then what does exponential growth on a company level and a personal level look like when these people are just not interested in taking part in these cultures of management?
Sorry, I just hit my own desk. It wasn't an earthquake. Just a little clumsy. It's a huge problem, and they're struggling even more to get women to sign up for leadership roles, because they're looking at the executives and they're like, nope. And that has to take a whole cultural shift in your organization if you can't get people to sign up for your management roles. And you need to have the training up front. You need to get them in training before they're even in the management role. Get them doing some communication training, some conflict resolution, and let them know that they're going to be supported to get the skills. I can't blame them for not wanting to take on a management role with the level of expectation that's required. But it also means that companies, and I've been advocating for this for a while, companies need 2 career streams. You need the people leadership career stream, and then you need the technical expert career stream. So if somebody doesn't want to manage people or shouldn't be managing people, they shouldn't be penalized for that. You shouldn't have your career growth stalled because you don't want to be a people manager. So there needs to be 2 streams for that. I was at a dinner many years ago, a lovely woman sitting across from me, and she asked, "What do you do?" And so I told her, and she said, "I just don't care. I don't want to consider my employee's disc profile, and I don't want to worry about that." And I'm like, bless your heart, you need to get yourself out of a management role. You shouldn't be in a management role. And maybe she never wanted to be, and that was the only career path, for advancement. But someone like that, there needs to be another technical career path for them. And for the young person who's not interested in management, you need to get to the root of that, and that's a workplace culture problem for sure. But there needs to be another career path for that person as well.
And that's the thing, because everyone can be a leader and and deliver amazing results and be passionate about what they're doing and their purpose in their role. Role clarity you mentioned earlier, and I have that every time I go into an organization. There's role clarity issues, right? And then I see these leaders being promoted that are technical, and they don't, they're like, why am I going to put in all these hours? I might as well go back. I could probably make overtime. It's just like, it's fascinating. But that's where it's like you did write in the book about the purpose piece, right? And really it's the mission and the vision and the values and the purpose of the organization, and how does your role connect in it? You talked about that. I agree so much with that. And then just really understanding what you love to do. And so it'll be interesting. Will we be losing all these managers? And hey, it might be a good for those who want one, but then are they good managers? We'll see, right? They have to get training. That's the key. So yeah, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm mindful that Emmeline's going to be leaving. We're going to stay on. I usually keep it till a little bit after 11 in case people have more. Usually we're done in an hour, but I did want to have her take a quick screenshot if that's okay. If anyone does have their book, I know a couple of people said they didn't. Some do it on audio, but I want to get at least one photo.
Screenshot.
So thank you. I know that. Oh, sorry.
Just another one, like in the real pictures, just in case. There we go. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Catherine often does the audio. I know that much, but and so do I. Did you do an audio for this one yet, Corina?
Audio book?
Yeah.
No, haven't done an audiobook. Not sure I will. It's a bit pricey.
Okay. Oh, is it? Because I do love sometimes when it's the author voice. Me, it's just feels like you're chatting with me and things like that. So I want to make sure Karen or Nikesh, who haven't had a chance to ask a question, if you have anything you want to question or even comment on your experiences, because I know you all bring different experiences to our group discussions. Karen, over to you.
I unmuted. Hello, Corina. I also met Helen through Eleanor Beaton, and we were roommates in Mexico on one of Eleanor's retreats. I totally agree with everything you say, and I am what I call a self-made resilience expert. So I go into organizations and try to help their people be more resilient and give them those tools so that they can handle those things at home better and not bring them to work.
Yeah.
And sadly, I feel like that is part of our corporate role now, is to, like, nobody else is giving these people the tools. Our schools aren't teaching them before they get out of school how to control their emotions or how to handle hard things. Everybody got a red ribbon, everybody won, for too many years now. And then when we hit our real world adulting job and a manager says, no, you're doing it, too bad. And they're like, well, my mommy didn't make me do that. I mean, not exactly like that, but they're like, well, I never had to do anything before because I got a red ribbon whether I did the thing or not.
Yeah.
So that's what I do now, is try to go into organizations and teach people those resilience skills. Bye, Emily. Nice to see you. And I think that's kind of important. And I think as managers, kind of the best tool we can give them around those boundaries is, where do we refer those people when they come to us with all their shit, and you go, this is not my job, but this is where you can get that help. Because I think we'd have a lot less sick leave that way if we actually did have somewhere to refer them, or bring someone like me in ahead of time and go, these are the things you can do so that you don't lose your shit when something happens. Like, or, to help the people know that they have all the tools inside of them to handle the hard things. Because they're not learning that. I've raised 3 teenagers on my own, and they're all really resilient because I made them that way, but I see all their friends, like, I don't know, my daughter's 17, and her friend the other day was like, "What anxiety meds do you take?" And my daughter's like, "None." And she goes, "But you've been through all these hard things. You don't have to take anxiety meds?" And she's like, "No, I'm just raw dogging it through life." And
Oh,
this poor girl, she's like, "Oh, I have to go get mine adjusted. I don't know what to do." And, "My boyfriend didn't text me back in the first 5 minutes, and I don't know, maybe he's breaking up with me." And
oh
I'm
my
like, like, these are the people that are joining our workforces now that don't have the tools. And I'm just so passionate about trying to help people know they have the tools without numbing all the things. I know a man who's 55 years old. My friend just started dating him. He's complains about his anxiety all the time and takes meds, but he also smokes weed and he's an alcoholic and like he uses every numbing device possible. And I'm
yeah,
like, oh, like
yeah.
we we need to know the tools to get us through this without all those numbing devices that we've used as crutches for too many years.
Oh my God, have we ever? Thank you for doing such important work. You're really like doing God's work there. Um, oh my gosh, I know. Like I have a 14, almost 15-year-old trying to give him coping skills, and he's being a little bit stubborn about it, even just, not really wanting to hear, no, I got it handled. I got it handled. So
Oh,
we're just
boys are a
keeping
whole different breed.
just keeping an eye on that. One of my certifications, as a side note, is emotional intelligence. And interestingly enough, I'm getting more, it died off for a while, the requests for me to come in and talk about emotional intelligence. And now it's picking back up because of AI. So for
Yeah.
every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And people are like, sick of AI. Can you come back and talk about feelings? So that's interesting. So I'm getting, if that helps you feel a tiny bit better, I'm getting more requests to come in and talk about emotional intelligence. And as we become so AI dependent and get AI burnout and stuff like that, I suspect that hopefully there'll be more uptake then and people realizing they need the skills to cope. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm experiencing it too. And I say that what I do is resilience, except
It is.
I don't teach resilience. I'm giving, if you're a manager and you don't have the skills you need to do your job, you're going to burn out fast.
Yeah,
So I always say that the hidden curriculum in my work is resilience.
totally. And I think everyone who does any kind of coaching or
Yeah.
training, that's really what we're teaching. At the end of the day,
Hmm.
it's all about resilience and how to handle the hard things because we're going to have the hard things. And I had to laugh a few weeks ago. Kudos to, I'm in Nova Scotia, by the way. Um,
Yay.
a staff here at one of our local high schools, just outside of Halifax, does a wellness day for their grade nines. And they invited me and my daughter, because my daughter has done some speaking and also is a published author as well as me. She wrote a children's book when she was 13. So this woman who follows me on social media was like, "Can you come in and talk to our grade nines?" So I did a keynote first thing, and my daughter first was like, "I don't want to be part of that." And then we did 3 workshops. And 2 things. First of all, about 10 minutes before my keynote was over, my daughter walks over and like puts her hand down and says, "Give me the mic. I want to say something." I'm like, "Okay." And she says to this room full of grade nines, like there's 175 kids in the room, and she clearly was kind of watching their energy. And she goes, "I know you think you don't need to know this stuff, but this is important, and you are going to need this. I know you think this is just someone's stupid mom up here telling you what to do, but you're going to need this." And she was really passionate, like too passionate about it. I was like, "Ooh, whoa, calm down." But like she really made the point. And the fascinating part about the workshops part of the day was that students had to choose the workshops they were going to go to, days ahead. And mine was labeled resilience, gratitude, and empathy. And there were a cap of 15 students in each room. Almost every student that came in my room was male identifying. And I went, that was really impactful to me because I did not expect to see any boys in those rooms. I've raised 2 girls and a boy by myself for the last 13 years. I did not expect to see one boy in that room. And there was one kid that came in with his ball hat and his cowboy boots. And I was like, we are going to have fun. And so I gave them a worksheet or 4 worksheets. We kind of built a toolkit. And by the end, I had that kid opening up because I know he probably just came because he's like, yeah, bird course. I'll just, this will be a waste of an hour. And he was the one I looked right at and said, if you have someone in your home, because I know the dads of the boys like that, I have a lot of experience with them.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, if you have someone in your home or in your life who is going to make fun of those 4 pieces of paper you just completed or what you wrote on them or what they mean or, the fact that you're allowed to have emotions, do not show them this paper. Take them home, hide them somewhere. But I said, pull them out when you need them, but do not share them with that adult who is not going to support you through this.
Wow.
It was just, I still have
So,
goosebumps from that day.
I'm so glad you said that out loud.
Yeah. Because I've raised 3 kids who had a man in their life who thought that was foolish.
Yeah.
We got a lot of
Amazing.
work to do in this world, huh?
Oh, we do.
I do.
Oh my God, thank you. I mean, everyone here is doing incredible work to support others and help them see what they need. Like I loved so much about the book, Corina, because helping others find their light. Like there's so much that an individual can really impact another individual. That's by right. Giving them the space, by allowing the feelings. I mean, we could go on and on, emotional intelligence and having emotions and all the things we didn't learn maybe growing up as well. And for the future generations, my son just graduated yesterday officially from high school.
Yay.
I think and so it's just like listening to the valedictorian. He was amazing. And just these kids and all they are doing. And I'm just like, oh, I hope. I mean, there's so much hope, yet there's all the challenges and the pressures. And so, I have my little Dr. Seuss back there. Oh, the places you'll go that I gave both kids at one point. But I really feel a lot of the managers, Corina, never had, they never had the opportunity to learn these things. So the more that we have people that are out there that can help, and hopefully organizations that will, put the money where the mouth is, or whatever the saying is, like, you can't walk the talk and say you're this great place. And then, you really get there and it's a ding dong show or whatever you want to call it. Right. So, and the other thing, I wanted to ask you one more question about if organizations aren't supporting it. Like, here's the thing. How can we get more people to invest in themselves?
Yeah.
Right? It's great if the organization can pay for it, obviously. Mm. But to believe in yourself, to know if you really want something, that you have to. And I do have any, it's not really to do with the book, but I'm just curious about that, about giving people permission to do this for themselves.
I get asked that question a lot. I invested a lot of money in my own professional development, even when I was an employee working for somebody else. And this is another reason why I wrote the book. If you can't afford the cost of coming into Managing Made Easy, my book is $20 or $25 or something. My podcast is free. My articles are free. There's no reason why you can't be consuming that content and trying to better yourself. And I think it has to be framed as this is for you, to help you. And the truth is, there are some people who are never going to have that level of self-actualization that you need to invest in yourself. But there are a lot of people who will and will seek it out. And those are the people I try to find. I try to, seek out and things like that. Absolutely, you have to invest in your own professional development. We pay for our own degrees. We pay for our own certificates and things like that. And I think as a professional, it's just a part of your own professional identity and professional practice to invest in yourself if your organization won't. And even if your organization does, I still think there's other things you could be doing to invest in yourself for sure. And even if it's just seeking out a mentor.
Yeah. Well, and that's what my book's about. So stay tuned on that. And everyone here is supporting me. And I just think it's so interesting because you had, at the start, we talked about perks and parties and prizes. And I'm like, if they just invested in these other things, right? Like, don't forget the perks and prizes and, parties and all of that. They're very important, but, really put some investment into helping your team grow and be the best. And they're going to just deliver and give back and commit to the org and all of that stuff. So before we wrap up, I wanted to allow you, like, if there's any, I think you put some information into the chat. Anyone here or anyone watching it, because I do share this out later, where can they find you? And I really hope anyone that hasn't bought the book is going to go out. I definitely will keep sharing it. We also do a little blog summary of what the participants got and a little summary that we put up on the website. It's a little bit behind right now for the books that I've done. But I just really appreciate your time. And so if you could just share that with us, and then if anyone has any final parting thoughts, or if you do, I'd love to hear that before we wrap up.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great place to follow me because that's where I post most of my content. And feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions, if you're looking for a resource or anything for your own clients or anything like that. And in terms of a final, I can give you a leadership tip or something like that. But one thing that I'm really passionate about is I want more women publishing and doing podcasts and everything like that. I want women, because every time I go to a conference and watch a keynote or something like that, like it's still, women are not being quoted and things like that. And, there's not-for-profit groups dedicated to getting more women in the media as experts and things like that. So please keep putting your own thought leadership out there and getting your own voice out there. And our workplaces are in desperate need of the feminine model of leadership, not necessarily feminist, not that there's anything wrong with feminist, the good kind, the intersectional feminism, but the feminine model of leadership, where it's build a bigger table and bring everybody in, recognize everybody's strengths, be a place that supports people to become the best version of themselves. That's what our workplaces need. And you're all doing amazing work. Can I just say what an uplifting Friday this is now for me, ending my week on such a beautiful note with you beautiful people doing amazing work. We're all doing, all headed toward the same path. Like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful, amazing Friday you're giving me to end off my week. So thank you for that.
Oh, I think that's a wonderful way to kind of say goodbye till next time. I really appreciate all of you showing up and sharing your wisdom as well. And I want to see others here for their books in the future as my special guest. So I'm waiting for that too. But Corina, that was such a pleasure. And I love your energy too. And I am also going to have a fantastic day. And we'll be in touch. And everyone else, I'll see you next month. I'll share out the book, Sophie Lechner. It's another book. She's an amazing marketer and helps people with their LinkedIn profiles and things like that. But a lot of the messages are really about, sharing your stories and using your voice. And so that's kind of been a bit of a theme in a way this year. And so I'll send that out, and I'm looking forward to just enjoying the summer, and hope you all do too. So have a wonderful Friday, and I'll see you hopefully next time. Thanks again.
Thank you.